Hey there. Tonight we're not going to a world of deep forests or frozen seas. We journey to a different kind of quiet, a land of immense, silent spaces, of sun-baked earth and mountains that look like the bones of the world. We are going to the Great Basin, the vast, arid expanse between the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada. We're going to step into the life of the peoples who called this place home, the Shoshone, the Paiute, the Ute. And we must forget immediately the idea of the desert as an empty, useless wasteland. This is the first myth we must let go of. To those who lived there, this land was not empty. It was a complex living map, a library of subtle signs, and a demanding provider that gave its gifts only to those with the patience, the knowledge, and the humility to listen. This was not a life of grand monuments or mighty chiefs. It was a life lived on foot, in constant motion, in tune with a rhythm so subtle it was almost invisible. It was a life of profound scarcity, which bred a culture of incredible ingenuity and sharing. A life that, to an outsider, might look like poverty, but from the inside was a masterclass in resilience. If this kind of slow, quiet history helps you find a place of rest, I would be grateful if you'd like the video and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And as always, I am curious to see the small points of light on the map where you are all listening. Let me know in the comments where you are and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, settle in, dim the lights. Perhaps turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum that can sound like the desert wind. Close your eyes and let's walk into the great, quiet expanse. The air is dry, the sun is relentless, and the horizon never seems to get any closer. Yet, you are born into a world of immense scale and profound silence. Your first memory is not of a color, but of a feeling. The intense, dry heat of the sun on your skin, and the sharp, clean, almost medicinal scent of sagebrush crushed underfoot. Your world is a basin, a vast bowl of land rimmed by stark, jagged mountains that tear at the deep, blue sky. This is a world of distance. You can see for 100 miles in the clear, dry air a landscape that promises nothing and hides nothing. It is a geology of exposure. The ground beneath your feet is hard, often cracked and stingy. It is a world of pale colors, the grey-green of the sagebrush that stretches like a sea to every horizon, the dusty brown of the earth, the bleached white of the alkali salt flats that shimmer in the heat like a mirage of water. These salt flats, the ghostly beds of ancient, evaporated lakes, are treacherous. Their crust can hide deep mud, and their surface is poison to most plants. You learn to read the land by its vegetation. The sagebrush tells you the soil is deep and relatively dry. The greasewood, with its waxy, bright green leaves, signals the presence of underground water, but water that is often too alkaline to drink. Rabbitbrush and shadscale dot the landscape, each a sign, a clue in the great puzzle of survival. The trees are small and tough, clinging to life. Gnarled juniper and pinyon pines dot the low hills, their forms twisted by the constant wind into shapes of endurance. They are your only source of firewood, and one of your most vital sources of food. Along the few precious streams and rivers, corridors of willow and cottonwood provide a shocking slash of vibrant green, a lifeline that cuts through the muted tones of the desert. These riverbanks are the highways of life, concentrating plants, animals, and people. Water is the organizing principle of your entire existence. It is the true deity of this land. You do not think of the landscape in terms of miles or landmarks, but in terms of water. Your mental map, the one passed down to you through story and song, is not a map of towns or borders, but a map of springs, of seeps, of rivers that run for a season and then vanish into the sand, and of rock tanks that hold precious rainwater for weeks after a storm. You know which ones are reliable, which ones are bitter with alkali, and which ones are secret. Their locations passed down for generations as a sacred trust. To forget the location of a spring is to die. Thirst is not an inconvenience. It is a constant, shadowy companion. The climate is one of brutal extremes. The summer sun is a merciless hammer, baking the land until the air itself seems to shimmer and vibrate. The rocks become too hot to touch. The only relief is the shade of a lone juniper or a rock overhang. But the winters are equally brutal. This is the high desert, and the altitude allows the temperature to plummet far below freezing. Snow will blanket the high country, closing off the mountain passes. And the wind, the Anori in other tongues, but here just the wind, that sweeps across the open flats is a blade that can cut through the warmest rabbit skin robe. There is nowhere to hide from it. The silence is the other great presence in your life. It is not the damp, muffled silence of a forest or the humming silence of the ice. It is a vast, ringing silence, a void so complete that the buzz of a fly sounds like a roar, and the call of a hawk a mile high is a major event. You learn to live within this silence. It sharpens your other senses. You can feel the slightest shift in the wind on your skin, smell a rainstorm hours before it arrives as a faint, earthy scent on the air, see the flicker of a distant signal fire on a mountain top. This silence is not emptiness. It is a space for listening. This world, which to an agricultural people would seem like a hell of barrenness, is to you a place of subtle and complex abundance. You know that the roots of a certain plant, if dug at the right time of year, can be ground into a nutritious flower. You know that the tiny, black seeds of the saltbush are a vital source of protein. You know that the crickets that swarm in the late summer can be harvested by the basketful, roasted, and ground into a savory, oily paste that will keep you alive. Your knowledge of this landscape is encyclopedic. You are a walking library of botany, zoology, and geology. You have to be. Your life depends on it. You are not a citizen of a nation or a member of a great tribe with a powerful chief. Those are luxuries for people with surpluses. You are a member of a family, a small, mobile group that moves with the seasons, following the food. Your identity is tied to the land you travel and the food you eat. You might be a Kutsitika, a bison eater, if you live on the eastern edge of the basin. You might be a Tukudika, a sheep eater, if you live in the high mountains. Or you might be a Kuzedika, an alkali fly pupae eater, if you live near one of the great salt lakes. Outsiders, much later, will hear these names and use them as insults. They will not understand that these are not insults. They are simple statements of fact, a declaration of who you are and how you have mastered the art of survival in this great, silent, and demanding world. Ole. Winter in the Great Basin is a time of contraction, a huddling against the cold. The vast landscape, once your larder, becomes a place of peril. The cold descends from the mountains, a palpable weight that presses down on the land. The world shrinks to the small, smoky circle of your winter camp. This is not a village of permanent structures. It is a temporary haven, a place to wait out the harshest season, fueled by the bounty you gathered in the autumn. Your winter home is a wickiup. It is a simple, conical structure, a masterpiece of minimalist design born from a world that offers few building materials. The frame is made of juniper or willow poles, salvaged or cut with great effort using stone tools. The poles are driven into the ground in a circle, perhaps 10 to 12 feet in diameter, and then bent inwards and lashed together at the top with cordage made from yucca fiber or milkweed. This frame, looking like the skeleton of a great beast, is then covered with whatever is available. In the lower elevations, it might be thick layers of sagebrush or tule reeds from a nearby marsh. In the higher country, you might use large sheets of cedar or juniper bark. The wickiup is not airtight. It is not meant to be. The wind finds its way through the countless cracks in the brush walls. It is not waterproof. A winter rain or a melting snow will leave the interior damp and smelling of wet earth, but it is shelter. It breaks the killing power of the wind, and with a fire inside, it holds just enough warmth to keep your family alive. Often, the wickiup is built in a slight depression or against a large rock outcropping to give it more stability and protection. The interior is stark. There is one room. In the center is a fire pit, a shallow depression in the earth, its edges lined with stones. This is the heart of the home, the source of all warmth. The smoke is supposed to filter out through a hole at the apex of the cone, but it rarely does so efficiently. The air inside is always hazy, and the smell of juniper smoke permeates your clothes, your hair, and your skin. The floor is the earth itself, perhaps softened with a layer of dry grass or a precious rabbit skin blanket. There is no furniture. You sit, work, and sleep on the ground. You sleep in a circle around the fire, feet pointed towards the flames, your family members huddled close together under shared robes. Your blanket is your most prized possession. It is not woven wool. It is a marvel of ingenuity and patience, made from the skins of dozens, even hundreds, of rabbits. The skins are cut into long, thin strips and then twisted together, creating a soft, incredibly warm fur rope. These ropes are then woven together to create a large, thick, and surprisingly lightweight blanket. It represents countless hours of hunting and skilled work by both men and women. The winter camp is usually situated in a sheltered location, low valley, the lee of a rocky outcrop, or within a grove of pinyon and juniper trees that provide a windbreak and a ready, though limited, source of firewood. Several related families, perhaps 20 to 30 people in total, will camp together for the winter. This is the largest social gathering of the year, a time of shared resources and reinforced kinship. The wickiups are clustered together, their smoke rising into the cold, clear air, a small constellation of human life in the vast, sleeping landscape. Life slows to a crawl. The frantic gathering of the summer and fall is over. Now begins the long, slow, and careful consumption of what you have stored. Your survival for the next 4 months depends entirely on the caches you prepared in the autumn. These are pits dug into the dry soil, lined with grass and stone, and filled with the essentials: pine nuts, dried seeds, jerked rabbit or pronghorn meat, and cakes of dried berries. Each day, the woman of the family will retrieve a small amount of food from the cache. Every meal is a reminder of how much is left, a silent calculation against the remaining weeks of winter. The story of your winter is the story of your food cache. It is a story of hope, anxiety, and the slow, gnawing reality of hunger. You live by the grace of what you put away. The primary food, the staff of your winter life, is the pine nut. The nuts you harvested with such joy in the fall are now your most precious currency. The women spend a significant part of each day preparing them. The hard shells are cracked between 2 stones. The small kernels are then ground into a fine, oily flour on a metate, a large, flat slab of sandstone. The grinding is done with a smaller, handheld stone called a mano. The rhythmic, scraping sound of the mano against the metate is the dominant sound of the winter camp, a sound of sustenance. The work is laborious. It takes hours of grinding, your shoulders and back aching, to produce enough flour for a single family meal. This flour is then mixed with water, and sometimes snow, and cooked into a thick, greyish porridge. It is not a food of complex flavours. It is bland, with a slightly resinous taste of pine. But it is rich in fat and protein, a perfect survival food. This is what you will eat, day after day, week after week. It is your shield against starvation. You eat it slowly, savouring the warmth, knowing that each mouthful is one less mouthful in the cache. Supplementing the pine nut mush is the dried meat, the jerky from the fall hunts. The strips of pronghorn or rabbit meat are hard and tough. You chew on them for a long time, your jaw aching, softening the dry fibres and releasing the faint, gamey flavour. You might add a small piece to the mush to give it flavour and substance. There are also the cakes of dried service berries or choke cherries, pounded into a paste with fat and seeds. These are a treat, a source of sweetness and vitamins, and are eaten sparingly. And then there are the stranger stores. In a good year you might have harvested crickets or caterpillars. These were roasted, dried, and ground into a dark, protein-rich flour, which is now added to the mush. To an outsider, it is the food of desperation. To you, it is simply food. It is protein. It keeps you alive. But sometimes, The shield of stored food is not thick enough. If the pine nut harvest was poor, if a cache was discovered by rodents, or if the winter is unusually long and severe, the food will begin to run out. This is the season of hunger, the starving time. It is a quiet, creeping fear that settles over the camp. The portions of mush get smaller and thinner. The chatter around the fire quiets. The children's games become less energetic. Their eyes seem larger in their thin faces. You will eat anything. The men will venture out into the snow to check their snares, hoping for a single precious rabbit. You will strip the sweet inner bark from pine trees and chew on it. You will dig for the frozen roots you know are still in the ground. You will boil pieces of hide to create a thin, gelatinous broth. You will eat the grass from which your wickiup is made. No part of the natural world is overlooked. Everything is a potential source of a single, life-sustaining calorie. This is the great test of the year, the trial by cold and hunger. Families grow weak. The elderly, who have seen many such winters, will often stop eating, quietly sacrificing their portion for the grandchildren who represent the future. It is a time of immense psychological strain. The world outside is hostile and empty, and the world inside your wickiup is shrinking with your food supply. Your dreams become filled with food, with feasts you can smell and taste, but cannot touch. You wake up with the bitter taste of hunger in your mouth. It is during this time that the strength of your community is truly tested. A family whose cache has failed will be supported by others for as long as possible. Food is shared until there is almost nothing left to share. The survival of the group is paramount. But even with this deep ethic of sharing, some winters are too long. Some families do not survive. The winter camp can become a place of quiet, frozen grief. The survival of your family through the lean time is not guaranteed. It is a victory, earned through foresight, endurance, and the strength of your kinship. That, in the deep heart of winter, when the world outside is a frozen, hostile void, and the days are short and grey, your most important tool for survival is not a weapon or a basket, but a story. With the daily quest for food temporarily suspended, there is time. Time for making and mending tools, yes. But more importantly, time for culture, for connection, for reminding yourselves who you are. The wickiup, small and smoky, becomes a theatre. The fire in the centre is the only light, casting flickering shadows on the faces of your family. The elders, the grandparents, are the keepers of the law and the law. They are your libraries. Their minds hold the accumulated knowledge of countless generations, and winter is the season when that knowledge is passed on. Every night, the family gathers close to the fire. An elder, perhaps your grandfather, his face a roadmap of wrinkles carved by sun and hardship, will begin to speak. His voice is quiet, rhythmic. He is not just telling a story, he is weaving a world. He tells the stories of the beginning, of how the world was made. He tells of the animal people, the powerful beings who lived before humans and who shaped the mountains and carved the rivers. He tells of Coyote, the great trickster, the central character in your cosmology. Coyote is not a god to be worshipped. He is a chaotic, creative, and often disastrously foolish force. It was Coyote who stole fire for the people. It was Coyote who scattered the stars across the sky. But it was also Coyote whose greed and arrogance led to the creation of death, hunger, and hardship. The stories about him are often hilarious, detailing his failed attempts to hunt, his absurd vanity, and his endless, bumbling schemes. You laugh at his foolishness, but you are also learning. The story of Coyote trying to catch a fish and falling into the river is a funny tale, but it also contains a precise description of where the best fishing spots are and the dangers of a swift current. These stories are your maps. You have no paper, no ink. Your maps are oral, carried in the narrative of a journey. A story might begin. Coyote was walking south from the mountain that looks like a sleeping giant. After 3 days, his thirst was great, and he remembered that his grandmother had told him of a small spring hidden at the base of a red rock cliff. The story is entertaining, but it is also a set of precise, life-saving directions. You learn the entire geography of your world, every mountain, every spring, every salt flat not by studying a chart, but by memorizing the journeys of the mythic beings. The stories are your encyclopedia. A tale about the animal people arguing over which food is best is a detailed lesson in botany. You learn which plants are edible, which are medicine, and which are poison. A story about a child who wanders from camp and is threatened by a mountain lion is a stark lesson in survival and safety. The stories are your law books. They teach you the ethics of your people. They are filled with characters who are punished for being greedy, for hoarding food, for being lazy, or for disrespecting their elders. The moral is never stated outright. It is embedded in the narrative. You learn how to be a good person, a good member of the community, by absorbing the consequences of the characters' actions in the stories. The storytelling is not a monologue. It is interactive. The listeners will grunt in assent, ask questions, and correct the storyteller if he gets a detail wrong. The children, who have heard these stories since birth, will often mouth the words along with the elder. This is how the stories are kept alive and accurate, polished by the memories of the entire community. In the flickering firelight, the world of the story becomes real. The smoky wickiup transforms into the mythic landscape. The howling of the wind outside becomes the voice of a monster. You are not just hearing a story, you are participating in a ritual that connects you to your ancestors, to your land, and to the spiritual forces that govern your world. This is how you survive the winter. Not just with stored food and warm robes, but with a culture so rich and so perfectly adapted to your world that it can fill the longest, darkest nights with meaning, with laughter, and with the enduring wisdom of your people. The stories are your fire for the mind, a warmth that feeds your spirit and keeps hope alive until the sun returns. That, after months of the same bland, dry food, the change you have been waiting for finally arrives. It comes not as a sudden flood, but as a series of subtle, miraculous signs. The days grow noticeably longer. The sun feels warm on your skin for the first time in what seems like a lifetime. The snow, which has been a hard grey crust, begins to soften and shrink. Small patches of bare, dark earth appear, and from this damp earth, the first green shoots emerge. The end of winter is not a time of rest. It is a time of urgent, joyous labour. This is the season of the first roots, and the work belongs to the women. You and your mother, your aunts and your sisters will leave the winter camp, your digging sticks in hand, and spread out across the landscape. Your eyes, accustomed to the white and brown of winter, are now keenly attuned to the slightest hint of green. Your most important tool is the digging stick, the tuyu. It is a simple tool, but a vital one. It is a sturdy, straight branch of a mountain mahogany or other hardwood, about 3 feet long. The end has been sharpened to a point and hardened in the embers of a fire. Sometimes, a crosspiece is attached near the top to serve as a handle. With this, you can pry into the hard, often rocky soil to get at the starchy, life-giving roots and bulbs below. You are searching for the plants you know so well, the ones whose stories you heard all winter. You look for the tender, new leaves of the bitter root. Its fleshy root is a powerhouse of nutrients, but as its name suggests, it is incredibly bitter. You must peel it and then boil it for a long time, changing the water several times to make it edible. The work is worth it. The first taste of the cooked bitter root is a shock of nourishment to a system that has survived on preserved food for months. You search for the telltale leaves of the camas plant in the moist meadows. Its bulb, when roasted slowly in an earth avena pit filled with hot stones, becomes soft, sweet, and delicious. A large bed of camas is a treasure, and your family group might camp near it for days, harvesting the bulbs. You dig for the starchy tubers of the sego lily and the wild onion, the roots of the desert parsley. Each plant has its own unique taste, its own specific preparation. You are not just a gatherer, you are a chef with a deep knowledge of a complex wild pantry. This is hard, stooping labor. You spend hours bent over, your back aching, Your hands raw from the digging stick and the rough soil, but it is joyful work. The air is fresh, the sun is warm, and with every root you pull from the earth, you are bringing life and health back to your family. You carry the harvest back to camp in your conical burden basket, supported by a tumpline across your forehead. The basket grows heavy through the day. Back at the camp, some of the roots are eaten immediately, a feast of freshness, but most are processed for storage. They are peeled, boiled, and then mashed and dried in the sun into hard, flat cakes. These cakes will provide a vital source of carbohydrates throughout the coming summer months. The first greens are not just food, they are medicine. They are a flood of vitamins and minerals that your body has craved all winter. You feel the strength returning to your limbs, the fog of winter lethargy lifting from your mind. The arrival of the first roots is a time of quiet celebration. It marks the true end of the starving time. It is a reaffirmation of the cycle of life, a sign that the land, after its long sleep, has woken up and is once again providing for its people. You have endured the trial of winter, and the earth is rewarding your persistence. The world is green again, and full of promise. Yet, while the women are scouring the land for the first green roots, the men are preparing for one of the most important communal events of the year, the Great Rabbit Drive. Spring is the season when the jackrabbits, a primary source of meat and fur, are abundant, but a single hunter with a bow has little chance of catching these incredibly fast and wary animals. The only way to hunt them effectively is through a massive, coordinated effort involving the entire community. Preparations begin weeks in advance. The most important piece of equipment is the net. These are not small handheld nets. They are immense, stretching for hundreds, even thousands of feet. The nets are woven by the men from strong plant fibers, such as Indian hemp or milkweed, which have been gathered and processed by the women. The weaving is a communal task, done in the winter camp, accompanied by songs and stories. The final net is a testament to the community's collective labor. When the time is right, several family groups who have wintered near each other will come together. A shaman, one who is believed to have special power over rabbits, will often direct the hunt. He will perform rituals, sing songs, and perhaps smoke tobacco to ensure the cooperation of the rabbit spirits. The success of the hunt is believed to depend as much on spiritual preparation as on practical strategy. The men will go out and find a suitable location, usually a wide, flat valley or basin. They will string out the long nets, propping them up with forked sticks to form a huge V-shape or a long, low fence. The net is designed to be just high enough that a running rabbit cannot easily jump it, and its mesh is just the right size to entangle them. Once the net is in place, the drive begins. The entire community takes part. A huge, closing circle of people, sometimes a mile or more in diameter, is formed. This circle includes men who are not manning the nets, women, teenagers, and even young children. The circle begins to move slowly and steadily towards the net. The people shout. They beat the sagebrush with sticks. They make as much noise as possible. The effect is to create a wave of panic. Every jackrabbit within the circle starts to run. They are flushed from their hiding places under the brush, their long ears laid back, their powerful hind legs propelling them at incredible speeds. They run away from the line of advancing, shouting people, towards the one area that seems quiet and open, the space in front of the net. As the circle of people closes, the rabbits are funneled into a massive, panicked herd, all streaming towards the trap. They hit the nearly invisible net at full speed. The net gives, and they become hopelessly entangled, their struggles only making it worse. The men who have been waiting silently behind the net now spring into action. They move along the line, and with a quick, efficient blow from a wooden club, they dispatch the trapped rabbits. It is a scene of organized, bloody chaos. The work is done quickly and respectfully. A single drive can yield hundreds of rabbits. The hunt is a massive success, a huge infusion of fresh protein and resources for the entire community. The work is not over. The animals are gathered up and taken back to the camp. The butchering is a communal task. The meat will be eaten fresh in a great feast that night, a celebration of the successful hunt. But most of it will be cut into thin strips and hung on racks to dry into jerky for the lean summer months. The pelts are just as valuable. The women will take the skins and begin the long process of preparing them. They will be scraped, cleaned, and softened. Then, the skins are cut into long, continuous spiral strips. These strips are twisted together, with the fur on, to create a thick, soft fur rope. These ropes are the raw material for the most essential item for winter survival, the rabbit skin robe. It takes over 100 rabbit skins to make a single robe for an adult. The rabbit drive is the only way to gather enough skins at one time. The Great Rabbit Drive is more than a hunt. It is a vital social ritual. It is the moment when the scattered, independent family groups come together and reaffirm their bonds by working as a single, coordinated unit. It is a demonstration of the core principle of your world, that the greatest challenges can only be overcome when the people act as one. Yet, in a world with no metal pots, no pottery that could withstand the direct heat of a fire, your most essential piece of technology is the basket. This is not the loose, decorative basket of a modern home. Your baskets are feats of engineering, woven with such skill and precision that they are watertight, durable, and versatile enough to be used for every task, from carrying water to cooking your food. The art of basketry is a woman's art, a skill of the highest order, a measure of her wealth, her status, and her contribution to the family. You learn to weave as a child, your small hands guided by your mother and grandmother. You learn the weaver's calendar, the seasonal rhythm of gathering materials. You learn to recognize the right plants at the right time of year. The best material is willow, its young, straight shoots gathered in the spring when they are at their most flexible. You also use tule reeds from the marshes, the reddish bark of the redbud for color, the strong roots of the bracken fern for dark patterns, and various tough grasses. Each material is chosen for its specific properties of strength, flexibility, or color. The preparation of the materials is a long and patient process that takes far more time than the weaving itself. The willow shoots must be gathered in bundles. Each shoot is then painstakingly split into 3 long strands. 2 of these are discarded. The remaining one, the core, is then scraped with a sharp piece of obsidian to remove the bark and to size it to a uniform thickness. It is a craft of incredible patience. Your fingers become calloused and strong from this work. Some strands might be dyed with natural pigments, yellow from rabbit brush flowers, black from mineralstone create the patterns that will be woven into the basket. This is not just a craft, it is an intimate conversation with the plant world. There are 2 primary weaving techniques. The first is twining, where 2 horizontal strands, the weft, are twisted around a series of vertical foundation strands, the warp. This creates a flexible, durable fabric, perfect for making conical carrying baskets, seed beaters, winnowing trays, and hats. The open weave of a twined basket is perfect for sifting, and the flexibility is ideal for carrying heavy, bulky loads. The second, and more difficult technique, is coiling. A foundation of bundled grass or thin rods is built up in a spiral, like a snake coiling upon itself. Each new coil is then stitched tightly to the one below it with a thin, flexible strand of prepared willow. The stitching is done with a sharp bone awl, which is used to pierce a hole in the foundation coil through which the stitching strand is passed. This is the technique used to create the finest, most durable, and most important baskets. The masterpiece of the weaver's art is the cooking basket. It is a coiled basket, often large and bowl-shaped. It is woven so tightly, with thousands of tiny, precise stitches, that not a single drop of water can escape. But how do you cook in a basket that would be consumed by fire? The answer is a brilliant, indirect method. You fill the basket with water and the food you wish to cook. Perhaps pine nut mush, a stew of rabbit and roots, or parched seeds. Beside the basket you have a fire where you have heated several small, smooth, fist-sized stones until they are glowing hot. Using a pair of looped wooden tongs, You lift one of the hot stones from the fire and drop it directly into the water in the basket. It sinks with a violent hiss and a cloud of steam, instantly bringing the water to a rolling boil. You must immediately begin stirring the contents of the basket with a wooden stick or paddle, keeping the hot stone in constant motion to prevent it from resting in one spot and scorching the basket's interior. When the stone cools after a minute or two, you use the tongs to lift it out, and you immediately drop in another hot one from the fire. You repeat this process over and over, a continuous cycle of hot stones going in and cool stones coming out, until the food is thoroughly cooked. It is a slow, careful, and highly skillful process. It is cooking without a pot, a testament to your people's ability to create a sophisticated solution from the simplest of materials. Baskets are a part of every aspect of your life. You carry your infant on your back in a woven cradle board, its back straight, its head protected by a woven sunshade. You gather seeds and roots in a large, conical burden basket, which you carry with a tumpline strap across your forehead, leaving your hands free. You harvest tiny grass seeds with a flat fan-shaped basket called a seed beater, knocking the seeds into a gathering basket. You then use a large, flat, circular basket as a winnowing tray, tossing the seeds into the air to let the wind blow away the chaff. You drink water from a tightly woven basket cup, often coated with a thin layer of pinyon pine pitch to make it even more waterproof. Your wide-brimmed hats, which protect you from the intense sun, are finely woven baskets. The patterns woven into the baskets are not random decorations. They are a visual language. They are your art gallery. They might be geometric designs, zigzags, diamonds, triangles, stair steps that represent elements of the natural world, like mountains, rivers, clouds, or lightning. A specific pattern might be the signature of a particular family or weaver, a tradition passed down from mother to daughter. A basket is not just a tool, it is a work of art, an expression of identity, and a story told in willow and grass. Your collection of baskets is your most valuable set of possessions. They are lightweight, durable, and perfectly suited to your mobile lifestyle. They represent hundreds of hours of skilled labor, a deep knowledge of the plant world, and the accumulated wisdom of generations of women. In your world of stone and sun, it is the humble woven basket that makes life not just possible but organized, efficient, and beautiful. Yet, summer in the Great Basin is a season of intense heat and constant movement. The land is now at its driest. The ephemeral streams of spring have vanished, leaving behind cracked, pale earth. Your family group, which may have joined with others for the spring rabbit drive, now breaks down into its smallest, most efficient components. Often, it is just your immediate family, perhaps traveling with one or two other related families. The goal is to reduce the pressure on the scarce resources of any one area. Your life becomes a nomadic ballet, a constant journey from one patch of ripening seeds to another, from one water source to the next. This is the season when the grasses and desert plants produce their seeds, and these tiny, energy-rich kernels are a cornerstone of your diet. You do not plant these grasses. You are not a farmer. You are a highly skilled wild harvester, a forager whose knowledge of the subtle shifts in the landscape is absolute. Your knowledge of the land tells you exactly when and where the seeds of a particular species of grass, like the feathery Indian ricegrass or the tall Great Basin wildrye, will be ready for harvest. You know that the seeds on a south-facing slope will ripen a week before the seeds in a shaded canyon. This knowledge dictates your every move. The harvesting process is an art of efficiency and endurance. The woman of the family, often with her older children, will walk into a stand of ripe grass. She carries 2 baskets. In one hand, she holds a flat, fan-shaped basket, the seed beater. It is lightweight and easy to swing. In the other arm, she cradles a large, conical gathering basket. She walks through the patch of grass, and with a rhythmic, sweeping motion, she gently strikes the seed heads with the beater. The ripe seeds shatter from the stalks and fly into the deep well of the gathering basket. She can gather several pounds of tiny seeds in a day. It is hot, dusty, monotonous work under the relentless sun. You wear your woven hat for shade. The air is still and thick with heat. The only sound is the soft thwack-thwack of the seed beater against the grass stalks. Once the seeds are gathered, the long processing begins. They must be winnowed to remove the husks, stems, and other chaff. You do this using a large, flat tray basket. You find a spot where there is a gentle breeze. You toss the seeds into the air, and the wind, your constant companion, carries away the lighter debris, while the heavier seeds fall back into the tray. It is a graceful, almost dance-like motion, a partnership between you and the wind, requiring a subtle understanding of weight and airflow. After winnowing, the seeds must be parched. You cannot grind them raw. Parching improves their flavor and allows them to be stored without spoiling. You place the clean seeds in a basket with a few glowing hot coals from the fire. You must then constantly shake and swirl the basket in a circular motion, keeping the seeds and coals moving together, a tiny, hot whirlwind inside the basket. This toasts the seeds evenly without burning the basket itself. It is a technique that requires immense skill and concentration. A moment's hesitation and the basket will be ruined. The smell of the toasting seeds is nutty and delicious, the scent of summer sustenance. Once parched, the seeds can be stored for a long time in woven bags, or they can be ground on the metate into a nutritious flour. This flour is then mixed with water to form a thick mush, or baked into small, hard, flat cakes on a hot, flat stone placed by the fire. This seed flour is a staple of your summer diet. Summer is also the time for harvesting other resources. When a plague of crickets or caterpillars descends on an area, it is not seen as a disaster, but as a boon. The entire family will work to gather the insects by the basketful. They are then roasted, which gives them a nutty flavor, and eaten whole or ground into a protein-rich paste that can be dried and stored. The search for water is a constant, daily preoccupation. You know the location of every spring and seep in your territory. But in the heat of summer, some may dry up. Finding a new water source is a matter of life and death. You look for signs, the flight of birds towards a specific canyon, the presence of certain green plants that only grow near water, the tracks of animals all leading in the same direction. When you find water, you drink deeply, but you also fill your woven water bottles, baskets made watertight with a coating of pinyon pine pitch. Your camp in the summer is little more than a whisper on the land. You might build a simple shade structure, a ramada of brush propped up on 4 poles, to provide relief from the sun during the hottest part of the day. You carry everything you own on your backs. Your possessions are few, lightweight, and multifunctional. You are unburdened by material wealth. Your wealth is your knowledge, your skill, and the strength of your family. This constant movement is not a desperate, aimless wandering. It is a purposeful, patterned journey. You are not lost. You know exactly where you are going. You are following the pulse of the land, moving in a rhythm that has been perfected by your ancestors over thousands of years. You are living lightly on the earth, taking only what you need, and leaving a footprint so faint that it is all but erased by the next season's wind. That, as the intense, searing heat of the long summer begins to finally recede and the nights grow progressively cooler, carrying the first premonition of frost, a palpable sense of anticipation builds within your family group. It is a change felt not just on the skin, but in the very spirit. The days are still warm, demanding a slower pace during the midday hours, but the quality of the light has transformed. It has lost its harsh white glare, softening now into a golden, more forgiving hue that slants across the vast basin, setting the rabbit brush ablaze in brilliant yellow and deepening the grey-green of the sage. A new scent is on the wind, carried down from the high country, a sharp, clean, resinous fragrance of ripening pine. This is the scent of hope, the perfume of autumn, the overture to the most important and joyous season of the year. It is the time of the great harvest, the time when you will gather the life-sustaining food that will see you through the coming winter. And the sacred heart of this season, the pivot upon which your survival turns, is the pinyon pine nut. The pinyon pine is a small, gnarled, and unassuming tree, a wizened elder of the high desert woodlands. It thrives in the rugged country between 50 and 90 feet of elevation, its twisted branches a testament to its endurance against wind and snow. For most of the year, it is just another feature of the starkly beautiful landscape. But in the fall of a good year, and not every year is a good year, a hard lesson taught by the ghosts of lean winter sits, cones swell with nuts that are an unparalleled treasure. They are rich in protein and fat, the most calorie-dense food available in your world, a true and miraculous gift from the land. A good pine nut harvest can mean the difference between a winter of relative comfort, of full bellies and fireside stories, and a winter of gnawing hunger and sickness, of watching the old and the very young fade away. Its success or failure is not a matter of comfort, but of life and death. It will dictate the mood, the health, and the very future of your people for the next 6 months. The harvest is not a task for a single family. It is a great communal event, a symphony of collective effort. Your small family group, which has been traveling alone or with only 1 or 2 other families all summer, following the sparse resources of the basin floor, will now begin the slow, deliberate journey upwards. You move towards the traditional pinyon groves in the mountains, places your people have returned to for generations beyond counting. And there, as you top a familiar ridge, you will see it, the smoke of other camps rising in the clear air. You will hear the distant, welcome sounds of other people. Here, you will meet others. Families you have not seen since the snows of the previous winter will arrive from their own summer territories, their paths converging on this place of bounty. The Pine Nut Camp is a bustling, joyous, and wonderfully noisy place. Shelters, simple wickiups of willow and brush, spring up across the sheltered canyon. The population swells from a mere dozen to over 100. It is the largest social gathering of the year, a vibrant and temporary city of kinship. The profound isolation that defines much of your life is replaced by the warmth of a large, interconnected community. This is a time for renewing kinship ties, for long emotional embraces with cousins and aunts not seen for many months. It is a time for trade, a chance to exchange the unique resources of your territory for those of another, perhaps a beautifully tanned deer skin for a finely woven water basket, or a precious lump of obsidian from a distant quarry for dried lakefish. It is the time for arranging marriages, when parents will observe the young people, and quiet, serious conversations will lay the groundwork for future families. And it is a time for the vital exchange of information, for sharing news, gossip, and stories from across the vast basin. An elder holds court, describing a shift in the antelope herds far to the south. A woman shares a new, more efficient way to stitch a rabbit skin blanket. For these few precious weeks, you are not a solitary band of survivors, but a people, a nation, whole and together. The work of the harvest is intense and all-encompassing. It involves everyone, from the most respected elder, whose wisdom guides the work, to the youngest child who can walk, whose small contributions are valued. The first and most crucial task is to determine which groves are most productive this year. The pinyon is a fickle tree, and a grove that was bountiful 2 years ago might be barren today. The men, lean and tireless, will scout the mountains for days, ranging across the high ridges. They will return to camp with reports, their words painting a picture of the harvest to come. Once a rich, promising grove is located, the entire camp is established nearby, and the true work begins. The harvest commences with an ascent into the trees. The men and older boys, the most agile and fearless climbers, will shimmy up the rough, sticky trunks of the pinyon trees. Their bare feet find purchase on the gnarled branches. They carry long, specially prepared poles, perhaps the straight limb of an aspen, sometimes with a deer antler hook lashed to the end. From their perches high in the canopy, they use these poles to strike the branches with sharp, rhythmic blows, creating a shower of green, unopened cones that rain down to the ground below. Or they will use the hooked pole to snag a high branch, pulling it down towards them so they can twist the heavy cones off by hand and drop them to the eager hands waiting below. The women and children work beneath them, a vital and energetic part of the operation. They move through the grove, their large conical burden baskets held on their backs by a strap across their foreheads. They gather the fallen cones with swift, practiced movements, the baskets slowly filling with the weight of the coming winter's security. The ground becomes littered with the bounty, a carpet of green cones that promises survival. The air is thick with the sounds of labor, the thwack of the poles against the branches, the rustle of falling cones, the calls of encouragement between the climbers and the gatherers, and the laughter of children who make a game of the work. The green cones are tightly sealed, their woody scales held fast by a sticky, fragrant pitch that clings to everything it touches. Getting the precious nuts out is impossible without first opening the cones. To do this, you use the transformative power of fire. A large, shallow pit is dug in a central, open area of the camp, and a fire is built within it. It burns hot and bright for a time, then is allowed to die down to a thick, uniform bed of glowing, shimmering coals. Then, the process begins. Women haul their full burden baskets to the edge of the pit and, in a coordinated effort, throw the green cones onto the coals. They are then quickly covered with more brush and a layer of earth, trapping the intense heat. The cones are left to roast for several hours. This is a time of waiting, of watching the mound of earth and listening. The heat melts the incredibly sticky pitch and causes the woody scales of the cone to slowly open, often with a soft but distinct popping sound. It is a chorus of release, the sound of the tree giving up its gift. The entire camp becomes filled with the rich, beautiful, and utterly unique smell of roasting pine. It is the signature scent of autumn, a sacred perfume of prosperity and communal success. Once the roasting is complete and the mound has been allowed to cool, the cones are raked out, now dry, brittle, and a dark, smoky brown. This begins the next phase of the labor, the shelling. The entire community sits in large family circles, the mound of roasted cones in the center. They break open the now brittle cones, shaking and picking out the small, dark-shelled nuts within. It is slow, tedious, and painstaking work. Your fingers become stained black with the hardened pitch, a mark of the harvest that will last for weeks, a proud badge of your participation in this vital work. But while the work may be tedious, the time is not. This is a wonderfully social occasion, a time filled with easy conversation, with laughter that echoes through the camp, and with the soft melodies of traditional songs. It is here that the community truly binds itself together. The children learn from the elders, their small, nimble fingers perfect for picking the last, stubborn nuts from the crevices of the opened cones. Stories are told, jokes are shared, and the collective rhythm of the work unites everyone. The raw nuts are then parched to improve their flavor, and more importantly to ensure they will keep through the long winter without spoiling. This is done in a wide, shallow basket. A handful of glowing coals from the fire is tossed in with the nuts. With a continuous, skilled motion of wrists and arms, the basket is tossed and shaken, keeping the coals and nuts in constant motion so the nuts are toasted evenly without burning the basket itself. This final step readies them for storage. A portion of the nuts will be eaten immediately, a rich, oily, and delicious treat after a summer of lean eating. You might toss a handful onto the coals until their shells crack open, eating them warm, their flavor nutty and deeply satisfying. But this is a small indulgence. The vast majority of the harvest, the product of weeks of collective, back-breaking labor, must be carefully stored for the winter. This is the community's bank account, its insurance against the cold and dark. The nuts are placed in deep pits that have been meticulously lined with dry grass to protect them from ground moisture. Once filled, the pits are covered with large, flat stones and then a final layer of earth, carefully camouflaged to protect them from hungry rodents and the prying eyes of outsiders. Other caches might be made in small, dry rock crevices or natural caves, the openings carefully sealed with rocks and clay. The pine nut is more than just food. It is a sacred substance, the physical manifestation of the land's goodwill. Before the harvest begins, a shaman, a man or woman who walks between the world of humans and the world of spirits, will lead a ceremony of thanks. There are songs sung to the spirits of the pinyon trees, their melodies ancient and evocative. There are dances, their steps mimicking the swaying of the trees and the falling of the cones, performed to encourage a bountiful harvest. You do not see the harvest as something you are taking from the land, but as a gift you are receiving, a gift that must be earned through hard work, respect, and the proper performance of ritual. To be wasteful, to take more than is needed, or to show disrespect would be to offend the spirits, jeopardizing the harvests of future generations. This brief, golden time of autumn is the undisputed peak of your year. The community is together, its bonds strengthened by shared labor and celebration. The work is hard, but it is deeply rewarding, the results piling up in visible, tangible mounds of food. The caches are filling, and with them, a profound sense of security and optimism permeates the camp. For these few short weeks, the world feels rich, benevolent, and generous. You have done the work. You have listened to the land, followed its rhythms, and gratefully accepted its gifts. You are as ready as you can be for the long, quiet sleep of winter. That autumn, the time of gathering, is also the time for the great communal hunts. Just as several families cooperate to harvest the pine nuts, they will also work together to hunt the large game of the region. The most spectacular of these is the pronghorn hunt. The pronghorn, often mistakenly called an antelope, is a unique creature of the open sagebrush plains. It is the fastest land animal in North America, capable of reaching speeds of over 50 miles per hour. It has incredible eyesight, able to spot movement from miles away. For a single hunter on foot, getting close enough for a shot with a bow and arrow is nearly impossible. The only way to hunt this ghost of the plains is with a plan that involves immense cooperation and a deep understanding of the animal's psychology. The hunt is often led by a pronghorn shaman, a man who is believed to have a special spiritual power, a puha, that allows him to communicate with the pronghorn and to charm them. Weeks before the hunt, he will enter a period of spiritual preparation, fasting and praying. He might have a dream that tells him where the herds are and when the hunt should begin. His authority is absolute during the hunt. The first step is the construction of the trap. The people will build a huge corral, often V-shaped, out of piled sagebrush and rock. The walls of the corral do not need to be tall, only a few feet high, because the pronghorn have a strange psychological quirk. They will not jump over an obstacle, even one they could easily clear. They will always try to go around it or under it. The arms of the V-shaped corral might stretch for a mile or more across the plain, funneling the animals into an enclosure at the narrow end. Once the trap is built, the shaman and a few helpers will locate a herd. The shaman might wear a pronghorn hide and horns, and he will perform a strange, hypnotic dance, mimicking the movements of the animals, making strange calls. The pronghorn are incredibly curious animals, and they are often drawn towards this strange display. The shaman will slowly begin to lead the mesmerized herd towards the mouth of the corral. This is when the entire community, which has been hiding silently downwind, springs into action. They form a huge closing line behind the herd, moving slowly and steadily, driving the animals deeper into the funnel of the corral. As the pronghorn realize they are being trapped, they will panic and begin to run, but the closing line of people and the brush walls of the corral leave them only one path, into the final enclosure. Once the herd is trapped in the enclosure, the hunters move in with their bows and arrows. The scene is one of frantic, dusty, and deadly efficiency. The goal is to kill as many animals as possible, as quickly as possible. A successful drive can provide a huge amount of meat, enough to be a significant part of the winter stores for all the families involved. The hunt for bighorn sheep is a different affair. It is not a communal drive, but a hunt of stealth and endurance in the high, rocky mountains. The sheep are incredibly agile and wary, their homes the steep, inaccessible cliffs. The hunt requires a few skilled men who are excellent climbers and trackers. They must move with the silence of a mountain lion, stalking the sheep for days, waiting for a chance at a close shot with a bow. The sheep are prized not just for their meat, but for their magnificent curved horns. A ram's horn, when carefully steamed and shaped, can be used to create a powerful, sinew-backed bow, a far superior weapon to a simple wooden bow. These horn bows are valuable trade items. These autumn hunts are the final, crucial step in preparing for winter. The meat is cut into thin strips and hung on racks to dry in the arid, sunny air. This jerky, lightweight and long-lasting, is a vital source of protein that will supplement the pine nut mush during the long, cold months. The hides are scraped and prepared for making clothing, and the bones are cracked for their marrow, a rich source of fat. Nothing is wasted. Autumn is a race against time, a season of frantic, hopeful labor. Every day is spent gathering, hunting, processing, and storing. You work from sunrise to sunset, your body aching, your hands raw. But it is a good, satisfying exhaustion. You watch the caches fill up. You see the racks of drying meat. You feel the weight of the full baskets. You have done the work. You have outwitted the fastest animal on the plains. You have accepted the gifts of the pinyon pine. You are as ready as you can be for the long, quiet sleep of winter.